my name is Travis Louloudis with Infuse.io. We're releasing a guide for deploying your Spring application to Azure Spring Cloud. We have a written version of this exact same guide on our website in the blogs section. This is a direct link to that, and if you want to check out any of our other blogs, you can visit our Infuse.io site and then just click the blogs link. So for this example, we're going to be using IntelliJ for our IDE, and we're also going to be using an IntelliJ plugin provided by Azure to deploy our application to Azure Spring Cloud. So to do that, let's go to IntelliJ. And for the application itself, we're not going to dive too deep. If you want to get into how we developed the application, I go over that in the written guide. It's using test-driven development. So if you want to get a little bit into that and write this simple application yourself, you can follow the written guide. So in order to deploy from IntelliJ, like I said before, we're going to need a plugin called Azure Toolkit. So if we go to File, Settings, and Plugins, and we type Azure, we're going to see this first thing that pops up is Azure Toolkit for IntelliJ. I already have mine installed, but when you install this, you're going to get a pop-up that asks you to restart your IntelliJ. And when you do that, it's going to restart, and then on your root folder here, you'll be able to see a new option called Azure. And on this Azure option, you'll have a submenu that allows you to say deploy to Azure Spring Apps. But before we do that, let's go set up our resource on Azure so that we can have something to deploy to. Okay, so now we're in Azure, we're logged in. If you need help getting to Azure or logging in, there's links in the blog guide on the Infuse.io website. So for now, assuming that you already have a subscription set up, we're going to go straight to Azure Spring Apps. And most likely you don't have yours showing the link right here. This is just because I've been there prior. So let's go ahead and do the old-fashioned search. And if we start to type out Azure Spring, it pops up right here. So we can click into that. We'll be brought to the Azure Spring Apps Service homepage, which shows our resource groups that we've created in the past. So if we don't have any resource groups that we're able to deploy to, for me, I'm going to be using this one that has been pre-set up prior to the recording. But for you, you'll probably have to create. So let's go ahead and go into the create screen. And this is going to show our create resource blade basics. So it's the basics blade. So in here we have our subscription. It just auto selects because we only have one for now. And then we can name our resource group. A resource group is just the collection organization that Microsoft Azure provides so that we can organize our deployed apps better. So we already have a resource group. If you needed one, you could just click create new. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just put a name there. But ours is already set up, so we're just going to go ahead and select that. So for service details, this is just the name of the service that you want to display in that list previously. I'm just going to put Infuse Demo here. I'm not actually going to create this because I have the other one created already and set up. So for region, you want to select whatever region is going to be closest to your customer. For this instance, we're just deploying locally or for ourselves. So we're going to pick whatever region is closest to us. For us, that is West US 2. And we don't need zone redundant. And the pricing is just related to the subscription. So once you're finished with these, we don't really need to go into any of these others. We can just go ahead and click review and create. So after creating our resource group, we should be able to view it in this list here. If we go ahead and click into that, it'll bring us to an overview page. It'll show some of the information we entered earlier. It'll show that it's running. But really we're concerned with this apps selection here. And this will display any apps that have been deployed to this specific resource group. So let's go back to IntelliJ and deploy our app, and then we can come back here and view it in the Azure cloud. Alright, so let's head back to IntelliJ and deploy our app. Alright, so we already know how to do this. Right click the root folder, go to Azure, deploy to Azure Spring. When you first click this, it's going to ask you to log in, and you just need to log in with your same Azure credentials, and that will give this plugin the authority to publish or deploy applications to your cloud instance. So after you log in, you'll be presented with this screen. We want to deploy our Gradle demo Spring Azure, which matches the root folder here. This subscription matches what we have in Azure. This is our resource group. And then we have the application, and if this is blank for you, all you have to do is click here, and then you can name it whatever you want, which we have it named currently Demo Spring Azure. And then before launch, these are different Gradle tasks that you can tell IntelliJ to run prior to deploying your application. Just the Gradle task assemble is what comes with default here, and that should be fine for our use case. So just hit apply and then run. It's going to run the assemble first. Now that that's completed, now it's going to run the deployment of our application to Azure. This is going to take a couple minutes, so I'm going to pause the video and come back whenever it's finished. Alright, so coming back in, we can see that our app has been created and updated. You can also go to the notifications tab here, and you can see that our application was deployed successfully. We don't need to wait on getting deployment status. We can just let that run while we go check Azure. So back to Azure. We're in our resource group. Let's refresh and see if our app deployed successfully. Which looks like it did. We can see it here, Demo Spring Azure. That's what we named it. It's running on Java 8. It's succeeded, and it has one running instance. So let's see if we can't go to this URL. So let's click into this. Okay. And we see that it has a URL, but it's blank here. And how we get Azure to assign us an endpoint so we can visit our application was just click Assign Endpoint. And that'll take a couple seconds, and then an endpoint will pop up here that we can click on, and we can visit our application. So click on that, and boom, hello from Spring. So our application was successfully deployed, and it is running and working correctly. So if you have any questions, feel free to make a comment.